Welcome in episode number 32 of the St0ner Sports Radio broadcast. Joining me again is Kaz Cray this week, giving you all the insights here on NBA action. We got playoff recap, Celtics force Game 6. We'll explore the NBA coaching carousel as it continues to spin around, and the Wemby effect. What will Victor Wembanyama bring to the San Antonio Spurs, and will Popovich coach until he's dead? We will tell you everything coming up here in the next 45 minutes to an hour. Kaz, how are we doing this wonderful Friday afternoon?
It is a beautiful Friday indeed. The sun's out, at least where I'm at.
Same.
And I can't complain too much. I finally got a day off work. I'm feeling good. Looking forward to celebrating Memorial Day weekend.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's just jump right into this, right? So last night, big stuff going on in the NBA. Game 5 between the Celtics and the Miami Heat. The Heat obviously go up 3-0 here in this series and look like they are the dominant team out of these two, and just seem to have caught the Celtics off guard, per se, in these first 3 games. And the Celtics didn't shoot very well all of those games. So, I mean, I think that we kind of had Miami in an ideal situation to pull off what they had pulled off to that point. Game 4 was in Miami, and obviously the Celtics win to stay alive. But last night, was this loss more about the Heat's lack of Gabe Vincent, or was this more about the Celtics just being who they were for most of the regular season and shooting above 40% from 3?
I think it's a mix of both, and also I feel like the Heat have it's hard to make this accusation because it's like, obviously, like, there's people will dispute it or whatever. It really feels like over the past 2 games, the Heat have really coasted, where it's like, all right, we're up 3-0. No team's ever come back in the NBA playoffs from a 3-0 deficit. So it's like, it feels like they kind of have coasted over the past 2 games. And the Celtics are just taking it a lot more seriously because they know their season's on the line.
Yeah.
And they've just been shooting a whole lot better over the past 2 games. Because, I mean, I remember game 3, what was like Jason Tatum was like 4 of 18 or something like that.
Yeah, terrible.
Obviously, like, he's like, him and Jaylen Brown are like the top 2 guys on the team. Like, they're kind of interchangeable between like who's really like the top dog. Like, they're both great players. And they're finally starting to show up. Even Derek White was starting to hit some shots. I think his 24 points yesterday was the most he's had the entire series so far. So
and a new career high for 3-pointers made as well, 6 of 8.
Yeah, I mean, it was firing on all cylinders. And like on the flip side, not having Gabe Vincent, I mean, we already know the Heat have had all types of injuries. I mean, literally, I think what was it, like the first game against the Bucks where they lost both almost called him Kyle. Tyler Hero. I did that last time too. Tyler Hero and Victor Oladipo were both hurt. So it's like they obviously are missing 2 big time stars. Yeah. Like not stars, but like key players.
Key productive players.
Yeah. Just didn't really show up in the game. Bam was struggling a bit as well. Duncan Robinson had a good game, and he led the Heat with 18 points yesterday, but it's like,
you can't have that, though. You can't have Duncan Robinson leading you with 18 points.
Saying, like, if that's what's leading your team against the Celtics, you're going to have a very, very bad time.
Yeah.
But it just felt like the Celtics have got hot all of a sudden, and the Heat have just kind of tapered off. I mean, before the series, I think it was Game 6, which was the only time the Heat in the playoffs so far had less than 100 points. And in that game, they held the Sixers to like 80-something. So for them to like not crack 100, like, let alone just getting blown out in the past 2 games, they're going to have to get it together. I mean, they're going back to Miami now. So now they probably have, they definitely have home field advantage, but they have more of an advantage in that regard. But it's like, again, you can't sleep on the Celtics. I mean, they are one of the top teams in the league for a reason.
Yeah.
And I mean, they just got to find a way to get their shot.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to for me, right? I mean, when it was going into game 4, I said law of averages here and probability. If you throw simple math in here, the Celtics have been so bad that they were kind of due to kind of rebound from that, right? Because of the
Yeah,
consistency during the regular season of them shooting above 35% from 3, shooting above 40% from the field in general throughout the whole entire season. And then you have 3 games in a row where you shoot like garbage. In my mind I was like, it's only a matter of time before this sways the other way. And you look at
right.
the Heat, they were shooting above 40% from 3, and during the season, they shot an abysmal 28% from beyond the arc on average throughout the season. They're not a 3-point shooting team. In those
Not at
first 3
all.
games, everything from distance is falling. Gabe Vincent is pulling up in transition on 3-on-1 breaks where they could add a layup, and Vincent's like, no, I'm popping this like I'm Steph Curry. And that just wasn't happening throughout the regular season for Miami at all. And so I thought, this thing is going to switch. Like, there's going to be a downfall here of Miami getting back to what they normally are and Boston back to closer where they normally are. And that's exactly what we've seen. We've seen production from, like you said, Derek White. You see Marcus Smart had 23. He shoots 4 of 6 from beyond the arc. As a team, they shoot 41%. They hit 16 threes. And Miami only hits 9. When the other team hits 7 more threes than you, 9 times out of 10 you're losing, especially when your starting player only has 14 points. And speaking of starting players, let's hear from Jimmy Butler what he had to say after the game. I got it pulled up. Let's go ahead and listen to this clip.
We just got to play better, start the games off better on the starters, make it more difficult for them. They're in a rhythm since the beginning of the game, but we're always going to stay positive, knowing that we can and we will win this series, and we'll just have to close it out at home. We just got to play better, start the game.
And that's Jimmy Butler saying we are going to win. We will play better. We just have to come out and start games better. And we'll just have to close it out at home. But he says they will win game 6. And that's a lot of pressure to put on your team, especially a team that on average does not shoot very well from 3. I mean, they shot 39% last night, right? Which, as I said, is 10% higher than their average per season. They were shooting under 30. For the regular season, so still better, but they just didn't have the production from Jimmy. He goes 5 of 10 from the floor in 34 minutes, 0 for 2 from 3, and only gets to the line 6 times and only makes 4 out of 6 free throws. I mean, 14 points from Jimmy Butler when he's a minus 24 on the plus-minus, one of the lowest plus-minus grades on this roster. I mean, Max Strus was a minus 20, Kyle Lowry a minus 5, Kevin Love a minus 11, and Bam Adebayo has minus 15 as his plus-minus. You can't do that and expect to win basketball games, which why a lot of people think that they will close it out at home. Where do you see this series going? Because everybody said, going into this, for this latter half of this series, is the one thing that the Celtics have that most teams down 0-3 don't have is home court advantage, right? Most of the time, the team with home court advantage is the one that's up 3-0, and that's what kind of does you in. But in this case, it was the other way around. But now, like everybody said, these last couple games, these last 3, 2 out of the 3 are going to be in Boston if they win Game 6. So what are your takeaways from this?
Now, first and foremost, Jimmy Butler, like, as far as his comments go, I respect the confidence and I respect the fact that he wants to close it out. But if they don't win Game 6, that is going to put so much more pressure on the team as a whole in general to perform in Game 7. Because, and especially you're going to the Garden for Game 7, like you're going to TD Garden, like good luck, bro.
Yeah.
Because the Celtics have momentum on their side. They have, overall, they're a more talented team than, like, let's call a spade a spade. They're on paper the more talented team. They haven't played like it in the first 3 games, but you're going to put that pressure on your team, knowing all the injuries that you have. Gabe Vincent, I don't know if he plays Game 6, but if there is a Game 7, he'll probably play in that, honestly, because from what I've read, he was a game time decision yesterday, so it didn't end up like getting cleared for the game, I guess. But I mean, I want to say I feel like the Heat could win, but it's just like, if we're being realistic, ever since LeBron, like Bosh and D-Wade all left, the Heat, like, as far as like being like a playoff crowd, hasn't been like as energetic as like a lot of other teams. Granted, clearly it's not mattered because they're one win away from getting to the finals. So it's like it hasn't played that much of a role. But at the same time, if they don't win game 6, I highly doubt they win game 7.
Yeah.
Just basically because all the pressure is going to be on them. And the Celtics are going to be feeling themselves and they're going to be playing game 7 at home. These are the type of games that a team like the Celtics usually thrive in and should win. So I don't know. Like, I don't want to sleep on the Heat, but it's like they got to get it together now.
Yeah, I mean that's where we're at, right? We're at this cross section where it's like, okay, well, you have Jimmy Butler playing, not too well in Game 5, but he just doesn't seem concerned, right? He doesn't want to put that pressure on his teammates or himself. Yet he goes and says they're going to win, but I think that's because he just, like you said, has that confidence in himself and his team and knows what they're capable of. But at the same time, like, do you really want to put that pressure on guys that haven't really been in this situation before where they've got to close the game out? When's the last time Max Strus was in a series where he had to close it out?
Exactly.
The only person that's really got any experience is Kyle Lowry and Kevin Love. Those are kind of your two guys. Duncan Robinson also, but as far as like guys that have been in the league and have been, stars, Kyle Lowry is a star. Kevin Love is a star. Now Kevin Love is kind of on the decline here, but Kyle Lowry is still supposed to give you solid production because he's not old. He's just had that groin injury that's kind of been, it has kind of held him back a little bit. But, you got to shoot more than 5 times from the floor in 30 minutes if you're Kyle Lowry. That's kind of what I'm getting at is if you're not going to show up away from Miami and go back for Game 6. And the crowd thing is interesting, but I think that place is going to be packed because of the importance. Like, that those South Florida people show up only if the game is important. That's kind of the way it goes, right? There's so many things to do in Miami. That's the other thing is there's always been the thing is like, oh, well, you can go to the beach. Like, people would rather be at the beach than be crammed inside, and sweating next to some oaf, paying $16 for a beer and, watching the Heat maybe win. That's been kind of the vibe the last few years, like you said. But now it's like, I feel like because they're on this run, I feel like more of these casual fans are going to try to make the trip down to the arena and pack that place. So I expect the crowd to be a factor. But if the Heat are not shooting the ball well and the Celtics come out on fire and just make that crowd quiet for most of the first half and they go into halftime with a double-digit lead like they have the last 2 times, you're going to see people filing out of the building at the end of the third quarter probably, and you're going to see Game 7 in TD Garden. Is this going to be the first time a team comes back from 3-0 because this is the team that has the best chance due to the fact of what we've expected them to be as far as talent-wise and production during the regular season and what they're up against? Because to me, it seems like a perfect position to do just that.
If anybody can do it, it's this Celtics team. And, again, I just feel like it's really a big discrepancy in talent. Like, obviously, Kyle Lowry, that's another person. Like, I don't feel like people have really talked about him as much, and I feel like people kind of use his, like, because he is 37 years old, which is really surprising, and I just found that out, actually. Like, dude is 37, so it's like, he's obviously not what he was with, like, the Raptors back in the day, but it's like, if he's going to be on the floor getting the minutes he's going to get, like, I feel like he should contribute more. And I know he's been hurt, but it's like, still, it's like Jimmy Butler can't do it by himself. Like, he got help from Duncan Robinson. He's gotten help from Bam at times as well. And obviously Gabe Vincent's been pretty clutch in certain situations, but it's like, if the Heat are going to avoid being the first team to give up a 3-0 lead in the playoffs, somebody else has to step up, but Jimmy also has to not have games like he did yesterday, because if he has 2 more games like that, they're done.
Oh yeah, they're cooked. They're cooked. And the biggest thing is, I saw this stat earlier this week, is when Bam Adebayo has less than 20 points, the team loses by an average of 12. Yeah. And they lose by 13, so the trend continues. But the biggest thing for me was only 8 rebounds for Bam. Right. Usually Bam is a double-digit rebound guy consistently. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that Celtics weren't missing a lot. I think that kind of, takes away from a lot of rebounds happening in the first place, which was the case considering how hot the Celtics were from the floor. But when you've got guys like Marcus Smart and and Derek White going off for 22 plus. I mean, and you have your guys that have been so good. I mean, Max Strus has been good in this series. Only 3 points for Max Strus, 3. I mean, the guys averaged like 15 a game the last 5 before that. You look at players like, obviously Caleb Martin coming off the bench. I mean, he had 14 in 32 minutes, which isn't terrible for him. But Duncan Robinson outscored you in 28 minutes because he hit 70% of his shots from the floor. And that's going to, when he does that, he's going to produce. But like you said, if Jimmy's not producing, then it doesn't matter who's off the bench, because the reason they're getting minutes is because you're getting torched.
Right. Oh. Haywood Highsmith's another guy who performed well. Also, he had 15 points and he had a +2 plus minus.
And that's who took Gabe Vincent's minutes was Highsmith. Yeah. And so and you're getting the same amount of production as what you normally get from Gabe Vincent, but because he dropped 33 in game 3, it was like, well, is he now like a 20 plus guy? Like, I just didn't really see that being the case, but I don't think they were really guarding him beyond the perimeter because of the fact that historically throughout the season that he'd have been such a poor 3-point shooting team. Like, why get out on Gabe Vincent? Just let him shoot, and I mean, a dead clock can be right twice a day, which means Gabe Vincent will have a game where he shoots 7 threes and makes them. I mean, it's a professional athlete. I mean, we kind of forget that these guys are still in like the top 1% of the human race at what they do. So it's like, we're sitting here like, Gabe Vincent's a bum. I'm like, the dude could walk into any rec center and just torch anybody he wants. And you would be like, why is this guy not a pro? And it's like, but you put him against people of equal, talent, if not better, and it's like, you see even more discrepancies kind of between some of these guys, and it's kind of just amazing to talk about because it's like you feel like you're a jerk calling him garbage, but it's like Gabe Vincent's not that guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, he hasn't been that guy in his career. I mean, he just hasn't been. And for him to step up in game 3 was huge for them. And, I commend him for doing what professional athletes do sometimes, which is have their day. And yesterday, Derek White had his day. He's kind of the same kind of player. Derek White's not a guy that you really count on to put up 25 plus. No. He's a guy that you hope gets you 12 off the bench. I mean, that's kind of what you hope for. So him being 8 of 11 from the floor and 6 of 8 from 3 is like, he literally had a career day yesterday, and he was Gabe Vincent yesterday. And Gabe Vincent had a career game. Derek White had a career game. It's been a story of the stars kind of not showing up this series. Jimmy's shown up, but not last night. And so when you say consistently, it's been more about these role players than the starters, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. But, my last point here would be, honestly, I feel like regardless who comes out of this series, both of these teams, the way they have played, I feel like the Nuggets, I'm not going to say the Nuggets are going to sweep whoever they play, but the Nuggets have a very good chance of winning their first championship in their first attempt. Because, they've just been really hot from top to bottom. That's the conversation we'll get to.
Let's get into it. That was I was transitioning. You read my mind. So let's talk about the other side, right? I mean, the Nuggets sweep the Lakers. I talked about this a little bit in last episode, but not super in depth here. But I think now that we're kind of more into the meat of this Celtics Heat series, we can kind of fantasize about the Nuggets and who they're probably going to go up against. And as much of it seems in the air right now, I think, like you said, I don't know if it matters. The way Jamal Murray has been playing and the way Nikola Jokic has been playing has been phenomenal. And I think the biggest reason that they beat the Lakers the way they did is because in those last 3 minutes of each of those ball games, which team made the big play? It was the Nuggets. Whether it's Jokic falling backwards with like a soccer-style inbound pass over the head of LeBron for 3. Whether it be Jamal Murray taking somebody, spin moving in the middle of the lane and floating it up to give him a 5-point lead instead of 3 with under 2 to go. And the other thing was on the other side of that coin is the Lakers had no answer. LeBron James has no clutch gene. I'll say it until the day I'm dead. He's just not that guy. He's had his moments, but I would not want to have my life depending on LeBron James, shooting a game-winning shot. Give me Steph Curry. Give me somebody else. Give me anybody but LeBron James at this point in his career. If you're talking about like Miami Heat, LeBron James, like sure, like no one could really stop him driving to the basket at the time, right? But you saw that help defense that Jamal Murray gave Aaron Gordon on that last play, smothered him, and you saw that even Jamal Murray had his palm on the top of that basketball as LeBron James is trying to bring it above his head. I thought they were going to call a foul. I really did. But and I realized, well, there's 4 seconds left, and they're not calling shit. I said he could have gotten absolutely just molested all the way to the basket. I don't think they would have called anything. And I think that you just saw a LeBron James that gave you 31 in one half and just had nothing left in the tank the rest of the way. I mean, when you're in the cold tub at halftime, you're old, dog. I mean, that's veteran stuff when you're hitting up the cold tub at halftime.
I mean, I was just going to disagree with you on LeBron not being clutch. If you're saying he's not clutch now, I can more submit that because, I feel like when that last play in game 4, it's like, that's kind of like LeBron's bread and butter, like late game.
Yeah.
If it's a tie ball game, he's not going to try to shoot the game winning 3. But you're also not going to have anybody else on the floor try to shoot a 3. Like, you're not going to have Austin Reeves.
Why not,
you're not going to have Dennis Schroeder. I mean, because it's LeBron.
That's
not a good excuse. Trust me, I understand it's not like a good excuse, but that is like the reasoning at the end of the day. Because if you have LeBron James on the floor, like he's almost always going, except like when he was with the Heat, because obviously, Ray Allen hit that clutch 3 against the Spurs in Game 6. It's like obviously you had Chris Bosh who could also shoot, and of course you had D Wade.
Yeah, D Wade was huge. Yeah,
but it's like, on this particular team, I mean, who else do they really have that can hit clutch 3s or clutch shots in general outside of the occasional Anthony Davis clutch? I mean Schroeder's not that guy.
Austin Reeves is that guy.
Austin Reeves can be that guy.
I
think he showed it as well.
I was just disappointed he only shot 2 threes that whole entire game. Is that on Darvin Ham? That's got to be on Darvin Ham, right? I mean, that's just him not. I mean, that was what was amazing to me. I'm like, Austin Reeves shooting 2 threes the whole game, and you were down 3 for like the last 5 minutes of that game, and he doesn't even shoot one. Like, I mean, I can understand like not giving him the ball with 4 seconds left. I can get that. But he was the inbounder, and they love that play where it's like, all right, you inbound it to LeBron, and LeBron pat back to the inbounder. But I just thought, he's the best percentage 3-point shooter. So I was like, if I was trying to win this game, I would have probably had Austin Reeves shoot that last shot. But then, like you said, people would be like, well, why wasn't LeBron driving to the basket? Why didn't LeBron take the shot? Like, I get that because it's LeBron James. Like, I mean, I get that. But it's like the way that the Nuggets have been playing interior defense and the way LeBron's legs seemed spent after dropping 31 points and a half. I just don't know if him driving to the basket was the best decision, but I can't really knock it because like you said, that's his thing. Like that's his bread and butter. Like I think the previous play where he had that, that his other shot, which was in that baseline area where he was fading away, and he's hit that shot a bajillion times. It goes off the side of the backboard. It was so bad. That was more concerning to me than the drive to the basket at the end of the game because I was like, that's his shot. Like I've seen him hit that shot against the Bulls. I've seen him hit that shot. I mean, it's one of his shots, and for it to be that terrible, I was like, I don't know if I want him shooting the last shot at that point. But I don't blame Darvin Ham or LeBron James for the way that game ended. I just think that the Nuggets are a better team, and there's a reason the Lakers are a 7 seed, and I think that we have to give the Lakers credit for even getting to that point to begin with, because if this is a Warriors-Nuggets series, I don't think it would have gone just 4. I think it probably would have gone 6.
And also, another thing people got to think about, there are 2 things you got to think about. I agree wholeheartedly. I think top from the bottom, the Nuggets are a much better team than the Lakers. But that being said, I'm not going to say this was the least convincing sweep I've ever seen, but the Lakers were in every single
That's what
game.
I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's not like the Nuggets, on paper, obviously, when you sweep, everybody's going to say you dominated.
Yeah.
I never got the vibe that the Nuggets dominated the Lakers.
They just made more plays late. They made more late game plays.
That's all it is. And honestly, I don't think people are going to use this against LeBron's legacy, but it's I don't think getting swept by a younger Nuggets team when you're 38 years old and you're doing a lot of things that we were just talking about Kyle Lowry, like LeBron's
he's
38.
36. Yeah, he's
And he was on the floor in game 4. I think the entire game. Like I never saw him come out. Like I didn't see the entire game because I was at work and it was like busy at my job, but it's like I don't think he came off the floor that entire game. So it's like doing that at 38 years old is crazy. And it's like as much as people like I don't get into the GOAT conversation, so it's like, it is what it is. Like I don't like somebody asked me, "Oh, are you picking Kobe or LeBron?" I'm like, I'm not qualified to answer that question. I'm not even getting into it because it's just like people are gonna have their opinions like here or there. Like, I love all three. I love Jordan, I love Kobe, I love LeBron. Like they're all great for their eras, and I think like the GOAT conversations are just pointless personally, but that's a whole nother story for another day. But
yeah, he played all 48. He played all 48.
I don't see this as like something that you can use against LeBron's legacy because the fact that he even got to the conference finals is a win with how you like looking at that team. That's a win in and of itself. So
yeah, I agree. I mean, and he did play full 48, so you have to give him credit for that. I mean, and I expected him to because of the magnitude of the game. But I mean, I just think it says more about kind of the pieces he doesn't have around him, I think, because it's like, yes, Austin Reeves is good. Yes, Rui Hachimura played well. But I mean, where the hell was D'Angelo Russell? I mean, just disappeared, right? I mean, if D'Angelo Russell is who we know he's capable of being for this 4-game stretch, they probably win 2 out of these 4 games. I think that's legitimately what we would have been looking at for this Lakers-Nuggets series if D'Angelo Russell shows up, because he didn't. And I think that was a huge factor. Now, Anthony Davis, again, had 1 game where he was like mid, but he wasn't. I mean, he's never been terrible. For people to say Anthony Davis disappeared in the playoffs for several games is not an understatement compared to what he normally produces, but it wasn't like he wasn't contributing at all. His defensive presence alone is a huge advantage to have in the middle of that floor, and I think he did kind of give Jokic fits at times. I mean, he's a big body, he's got long arms. I don't think it was easy for Jokic to really score on Anthony Davis as much as the numbers would dispute you otherwise. I mean, he did put up some gaudy numbers, but that's an MVP caliber player going against an Anthony Davis who I don't think he's ever healthy, ever. I don't think a healthy Anthony Davis has ever existed in the last 5 years and will not continue for the next 5 years. I think there's always going to be something wrong with him. It just might not be something that's going to be taking him out of ball games. You know what I'm saying? I think that he's just got underlying back issues, underlying knee issues, and I think that you just and he's playing through a lot of them, and they're not going to show up on the injury report. That's the thing. They're not going to show up as injury report. And now that it comes out that LeBron had like a torn tendon in his foot the whole entire playoffs, I mean, you can't really knock him for the performances he put in if you're going to contribute that aspect into, if you're going to factor that into your analysis, is a hurt LeBron dropping 31.5 and then only dropping 9 in the second half. I mean, it's expected for a guy that's 38 to give you everything he's got, and he did. And I think that you can't really knock, like you said, them for getting to where they got, because people thought they weren't even going to win their play-in game against Minnesota, and they probably shouldn't have. Right. But it's like, but they're here. And, luckily for them, Mike Conley misses that 3 on the baseline with 1 second left, and they go into overtime and get it done. But I think that you look at the way the Lakers season ended, and I don't think Lakers fans should be irate. You know what I'm saying? I don't think they should be like calling for Darvin Ham to get fired. I don't think they should be calling for any like huge moves. I think that Rob Pelinka did a great job getting rid of Russell Westbrook and getting what he got for him. And I think that proved to be valuable with the way Rui Hachimura played. But, I mean, what are your thoughts on D'Angelo Russell not contributing as much as he probably could have?
I mean, he had a rough series. Absolutely. I think he had 10 points in game 2, and that's about it. But it's like the D'Lo that we saw against the Warriors, which is such a different animal than like what we saw in this series. I mean, he didn't show up for like game 4, I think it was, against the Warriors, but it's like that's about it. But it's like, with that being said, the fact that Dennis Schroeder got the start over him in game 4, I mean, I feel like that was just not a good move, because D'Lo just gives you more on the offensive side than Schroeder's going to give you at this point. So it's like D'Lo had like 15 minutes, Schroeder had like 38. It's like you got to give D'Lo even if you're going to start Schroeder, you got to give D'Lo more than 15 minutes to like at least see what he can do for you. Because I mean, if he doesn't show up again, he goes like 1 for 5, 1 for 6 or something like that again. At least you know.
Yeah.
But it's like now it's just like I feel like a lot of points were left off the table because he didn't start and because he only got 15 minutes, which is like I'm sure that was like kind of Darvin Ham's like, all right, this man's cold. Let me see if Schroeder can get things going at least like as a facilitator. But
yeah. I mean,
I don't know. I just don't think it was a good move.
I mean, well, then you look at the plus minus on that. I mean, D'Angelo Russell +6 off the bench. Schroeder for 38 minutes at -3. I think that has to do with the 3 personal fouls for him. He also, but Schroeder did hit 3 threes, which, I mean, when you come down to the fact that Austin Reeves only shot 2 and Dennis Schroeder shot 6, I mean, you can't have that and expect to be in a ball game, especially when LeBron's actually hitting 4 of 7 of his threes after being 1 for 29 in the last 5 games. I think that was an opportunity that they didn't really take advantage of. And, Rui didn't play super well, only 10 points on 3 of 12 shooting. One game he doesn't show up. Russell, doesn't show up either. 4 points in 15 minutes. That's not enough for D'Angelo Russell. 15 minutes for D'Angelo Russell, he should be dropping 10 at least. You should have 10 points in those 15 minutes, I feel like, the way that we know D'Angelo Russell can play. But, overall, I think this Nuggets team is like you said, destined to probably win a chip here. And if we want to play hypotheticals here, if they have to play Boston, which I feel like would be the tougher team out of the two, obviously, is this a series that's compelling to you if it's not Boston? If it's the Heat, do you think this thing just goes 5, or do you think that if it's the Celtics, it could go 7? What are your vibes here with the Eastern Conference kind of whittling down here and having the Nuggets have to, go against either 2 stars or 1 superstar and some good role players?
I personally think the Celtics will, just because the Heat are so beat up, I feel like the Celtics would give the Nuggets a better series, but I still think Denver would end up winning the series at the end because, especially when you think of, obviously they're going to try to double team Jokic as much as possible. Oh, yeah. Because, Al Horford's at the point in his career where he's not taking Jokic one-on-one. And I don't think Bam can hang with Jokic one-on-one, honestly. But it's like, I feel like the Celtics have the horses to hang with the Nuggets for a bit. So I can see it going like 5 or 6 games.
Yeah.
But it's like, I'm not, it's hard to call a sweep, but it's like, I really don't see how the Nuggets don't sweep the Heat if they, especially now that this series is dragging on for them. If the Heat would have swept the Celtics, I feel like it'd probably be a more competitive series. I'd say that's the 5 or 6 game series, maybe even the 7 game series. But it's like at this point, and then if the Heat lose on Saturday, both of these teams are going to be dragging ass going into the playoffs, whereas the Nuggets are going to be fully rested. So I don't like the situation for either team. But honestly, I think I would like both series in their own way. Like I feel like Boston would probably be the more entertaining series. But I don't, especially if the Heat do end up getting Tyler Hero back, because there's talk if they get the finals that he'll be back. Obviously Oladipo tore his patella tendon.
Yeah, he's done. Yeah, he's done.
But Gabe Vincent should be coming back. Yeah. Hero will be back as well. Like, I think that they would have you always have a puncher's chance.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I think the Nuggets are just like they really outclass both of these teams as a whole. Although I do think the Celtics would be a better matchup, but either way, I think the Nuggets will win.
Yeah, and the big thing about that is you look at the role players the Celtics have, you look at the role players that Denver has, right? If you have production from Derek White and Marcus Smart like you did this last game, which like we know is not normal, but let's notch these points down a little bit, right? Let's take like 6 points away from each of these guys. That's still enough to counteract Michael Porter Jr. going off for 20, because that means that Aaron Gordon's probably going off for like 10 or less. The Nuggets don't really have the guys off the bench, I feel like, to really hang with the Celtics as well. You would have to have huge games from Jamal and Jokic every game, I feel like, to really give yourself a huge leg up if the role players for the Celtics are playing well, because Bruce Brown doesn't really do much for me, right? Aaron Gordon is too spotty for me shooting the ball. He'll have some games where he hits 3 threes, but he'll have games where he goes 0 for 5 and just gives you some free throws and some good defense. He's not consistent enough for me. Um, you look at other players like KCP.
Yeah.
He's streaky. I mean, but he's probably as streaky as like a Marcus Smart is. I feel like they're kind of the same level of streaky, where Marcus can give you 4 threes, but then he can go 0 for 6 one day because he can't hit one. You know what I mean? And that was the same when he was at Oklahoma State. It was just kind of like he'd have games where he was really good, and he'd have games where he doesn't shoot the ball well. But I think that this is one of those matchups that I would like to see, because I think it would come down to the bench. I think it would come down to depth. It would come down to the performance between those two. If it's the Heat, it's kind of the same. And if you bring Tyler Hero back, and that shooting hand is not affecting his shot negatively, because that was the scary thing for me, is regardless of whether it's healed completely, you haven't been taking reps shooting the ball. And that was, they asked Spoelstra about that, I think 2 games ago. And he said, well, he's doing, practice stuff, but he's not shooting the ball yet. Yeah, but he wasn't shooting the ball. He said he's running around, he's dribbling, but he's not shooting with that broken hand yet. And that concerns me, because when you're not shooting the basketball and that's your role, is I'm a shooter,
you don't have the muscle memory. So it's
I mean, you do, but at the same time, it's like, how bad did he fuck that hand up? You know what I'm saying? Like, is there like a deformity on there because of the healing process? Is there scar tissue because of how bad it is? Is the grip going to be the same? Is he going to be able to put his hand where he normally puts it, as far as placement on the ball is concerned? I don't know. It could be nothing. It could be a nothing burger. I'm not saying that this is like a for sure thing, but it still concerns me, because you could still be cold as ice because you haven't taken the reps. You know what I'm saying? And that concerns me. But a healthy Tyler Hero is better than no Tyler Hero for the Heat. I'll give you that much.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like you were saying about the Nuggets bench, like obviously, like, Bruce Brown's like the main contributor off the bench, but even then, like, he's not like, compared to what the Celtics have, I wouldn't say that it's optimal. And then it's like you have Jeff Green. He's not a big contributor anywhere.
Uncle Jeff.
And then Christian Braun comes off every once in a while, but it's like everybody else, like, everybody else just kind of comes out in like blowouts. So
yeah, you don't ever see like any of these other guys really out there. And Christian Braun didn't even play in Game 4 at all.
Yeah.
I mean, didn't even touch the court. I mean, it was just Jeff Green and Bruce Brown off the bench. I mean, that was the only 2 you had, and they combined for 8 points in that Game 4. So if you have that happen, and you're the Nuggets, and you don't have a combined, 60 plus points from Jokic and Murray, which they only had 55 in Game 4, but that's usually enough when you can get contribute 22 from Aaron Gordon. You don't get 22 from Aaron Gordon very often.
Right.
So I think that was probably the biggest difference for them against the Lakers in Game 4. If that holds true and they only go 7 deep, I think they're in huge trouble. I think that a 7 deep Nuggets team against what the Celtics have off the bench is not a good recipe for like sustained success. You would really have to hope that Jokic and Murray combine for like 60 plus, because that's the only way you're probably surviving the possibility of a Jason Tatum dropping 50 plus. We've seen it already. We see Jimmy Butler drop 50 plus, by themselves, and you've seen that level of danger. And Jokic dropped 53 one game. I'm not saying he doesn't have the possibility, but when he did, Murray was playing like poo poo pee pee, and that's that's why he had to take over. He was like, you ain't shooting shit, brother. I got to take over, and that's an MVP caliber mindset. And you would never know. Jokic is just so like just stone faced, like not very emotional. Like even when he hit that crazy shot over LeBron, gave you a little shoulder shrug, but no smile, no cheekiness. Like he's very much all business, and I can appreciate that. But that's so common with foreign players, right? Like they really don't. I mean, Doncic is a little bit more animated, and I think that's just because he's kind of grown up in an environment where he's surrounded by guys that are very much inside of social media and pop culture. And when you come from Serbia and you have another guy that's coming from Lithuania or something, like I mean it's just it's 2 different countries that have different kind of access to stuff like that. And I think that also kind of contributes to the way they act on the floor. But I mean, I'm just excited to see where this goes, because if the Celtics pull this off, I think we're in for a very entertaining finals. If the Heat end up doing what they're supposed to do and close this thing out, like you said, I mean, have your hand on the broom. It could happen. I just think that it all comes down to game 3 if the Heat, have to play the Nuggets.
And I'll give the Heat this. A lot of people have doubted them all playoffs pretty much. I mean, I didn't, if I remember correctly, I think I picked the Knicks to beat them in that series, like assuming they'd close out the Cavs.
Yeah.
So, and I was wrong about that. So, and it's like, they went against the Bucks, who had the best record in the league in the first round. So I don't think anybody thought that they were going to beat them there, and they've done that. So, but I just feel like this Nuggets team is a different monster as long as you don't get in their depth.
Yeah.
As long as they can avoid having to go down to the DeAndre Jordans, the Ish Smiths, the Reggie Jacksons, they're gonna be fine.
I mean, Reggie Jackson ain't no slouch. I'm kind of surprised they haven't used him a lot. I mean, I don't know how much he has degraded over the years, but it seemed like when he was in OKC and in Memphis, it was like he was putting up 20 plus pretty regularly off the bench. It seemed like for consistently, and then when he was in Detroit, wasn't bad either. I don't know. There's something up with that. Maybe.
Ish Smith was never a star player, but it's when he was with the Wizards, he contributed a bit. He wasn't a top point guard. And I know he's a big journeyman, but it's his 2 different stints with the Wizards, he was a contributor. So and that was only he was there last year. So it's I don't know. I guess once playoffs hit, a lot of these teams don't really utilize their bench players. Yeah. They have that. I mean, they have DeAndre Jordan too.
His decrepit ass. If DeAndre Jordan gets minutes, this series is done. If you see DeAndre Jordan on the floor for the Nuggets in the finals, this series is done. They gotta be up by 45. I don't know if they're ever gonna put that old man in. You got put him
in late in the season, when they already clinched the first seed, but.
Man,
if they put him in the game, that's a wrap.
Ain't no Clippers DeAndre Jordan walking through that door. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
yeah. We ain't getting those knees back. So let's kind of move on to this coaching carousel, right? We got so many coaching vacancies in the NBA right now, and I just want to kind of get your thoughts on who you would like to see go where. And I'm just going to throw out some names here that a lot of people probably aren't throwing out. And I've got different opinions about each of these guys from different people, but I want your unique perspective here. So I'm going to throw out some names here. And names that aren't being mentioned, because we know Doc Rivers is out there, we know Monty Williams is out there, we know that Mike Budenholzer is out there, we know Nick Nurse is out there. Those are kind of the 4 big names that you were getting thrown out right here. But I want to throw out some names that aren't getting thrown out that I think probably should be kind of thought about. Here are the 3 I'm talking about. David Fizdale, Mike D'Antoni is still out there, and this is kind of just Ty Lue is looking to try to maybe move on from the Clippers, and you've got Steve Nash still wandering around. I mean, those are kind of the 4 that people aren't talking about that are still available. I don't know if anybody's really riding the Steve Nash bandwagon anymore, but as far as Mike D'Antoni and David Fizdale and Mark Jackson and Ty Lue are concerned, those are names that I think people need to kind of look more into. But in your opinion, who would you like to see go where as far as 76ers, Bucks, Phoenix, and other vacancies?
So as a former Knicks fan, I've heard about Mike D'Antoni being connected to the Sixers job. And I just don't think D'Antoni is a good, I don't think I feel like his offensive style just doesn't fit the NBA anymore. And this is as somebody who watched the Knicks when D'Antoni was there, because he got there when Stat got there, so right before they got Melo, and the offense was great with Sotomayor. Obviously, Sotomayor had played for him for a while, but it's I just don't feel like Mike D'Antoni would be a good fit for the Sixers. I mean, I think Embiid would eat pretty well, but it's just assuming I've heard about the rumors about Harden leaving, but it's if Harden's still there, I just don't know how that works out. Just thinking about how much Sotomayor dropped off when Melo got over there. It just seems like it's going to be a mess if he goes there. Some of the other guys you mentioned, I think Dave Fizdale, because he's the Jazz assistant general manager or associate general manager, right?
I want to say you are correct about that. I looked this up last episode, but I've already forgotten. Here, it's already on my search history. Let's see. He is currently the assistant general manager for the Utah Jazz. So he's doing front office stuff right now.
Yeah, so I guess he'd be out of the question just because he's like front office and he hasn't really been like, talked about anywhere. I can see Steve Nash going to the Raptors, obviously, with him being Canadian, them being the only Canadian NBA team. Feel like he could be a good fit over there. Who else did you mention? Like outside of like the top guys.
I threw out Ty Lue has been interested in the 76ers job. I saw that headline yesterday. Might be leaving the Clippers possibly.
I can see it. I can see him getting out of there. I think he'd probably be a top guy for either the Sixers or the Suns, honestly.
Yeah,
maybe the Bucks too as well. But
as far as
I think Suns would probably be the best fit for him though.
Oh yeah, no, I think you're right about that because I think he does really well with talented guards, and I think that with DeAndre Ayton probably on the move, you don't have to worry about that as much. I mean, and as far as names that have been established, Doc Rivers, Monty Williams, Nick Nurse, I mean, those are kind of the names that teams are kind of clamoring for. I know the 76ers reached out to Nick Nurse. I know that he's been interested in that Bucks job as well. We know Monty Williams turned down the Pistons offer the other day, which don't blame him for that. But I mean, as far as established names that people are throwing out there, do you see where do you see these guys possibly landing?
So I said,
and I throw out Mark Jackson as well. We hadn't talked about Mark Jackson.
I'm surprised he's not getting more looks, honestly.
He's interviewing. He's interviewing currently.
Oh, he's in.
Yes.
Okay. So from what I've read about the Bucks, the finalists for that job are Adrian Griffin, who's an assistant for the Raptors, Kenny Atkinson, actually, former Nets coach, and then Nick Nurse is also a finalist for the Bucks job. I think out of those three, I don't know. It's gonna be. I don't think that Griffin will get the job. I think it'd either be Nurse or Atkinson. That's just like kind of a coin flip, I would say. I know Mark Jackson's interviewed for them apparently, and then Scott Brooks is also interviewed. That's like
Scott Brooks. Okay, that's a name I haven't heard in a minute. All right,
but I would say of those guys, I think the best fit would probably be Kenny Atkinson personally. It's like kind of like people might be like, "Whoa, what are you talking about over Nick Nurse?" Like, yeah, like I think Atkins would be a good fit for the Bucks. For the Sixers, so I think Budenholzer would be a good hire for them. But another person who's like up there is Florida State alum Sam Cassell. He's an assistant coach over there, so if they wanted to stay in house, Cassell would be a good move. Actually, Frank Vogel, I don't know if I said Frank Vogel, but Vogel's actually interviewed for them or is actually a candidate for them. And then Monty Williams is another one. So out of those guys, I think Budenholzer would be a good move. But if they wanted to stay in house, Sam Cassell, definitely a good hire. I don't like D'Antoni and
I mean,
and especially with his age as well. He's 72 years old. So
it's not his age. Yeah, because I mean, Popovich is like 90 almost. I mean, like it's. I mean, I think for like you said, Mike D'Antoni's style of play. I mean, go back to Phoenix maybe. I mean, I feel like that might be a good fit for D'Antoni if he goes back to Phoenix with KD and Booker, because I think that fast-paced offense he runs would benefit from that. But with him, it's all about the lack of defense, right? Like it's the lack of defense for D'Antoni. The names that I didn't hear, Scott Brooks. I mean, Scott Brooks is a good coach at Oklahoma City, decent coach.
He was good at Washington too, honestly. Like,
yeah, he wasn't. He's not been a bad coach. There was another one that I heard about that was being thrown out there that was kind of interesting. God damn it, who was it? I'm trying to think. Because you said Frank Vogel, and that was a name I hadn't really heard in a minute. I think that is along this kind of the same lines as who I'm thinking of here. Who the hell am I thinking of? Well, maybe it'll come to me, maybe it won't. But I think that when you talk about the 76ers, I think they're pretty like set on Budenholzer, like you said. I think Budenholzer is kind of the guy they're looking to try to, because he did so well with Giannis. They're like, you can do things with Embiid, and if
Exactly.
James Harden leaves and you have Ty Maxey taking over that more of the minutes that Harden had, and kind of looking towards the draft for probably filling some of these voids that you'll have when he leaves, I think it's not a terrible decision to go that route.
Mm,
As far as I think Brad Stevens. That's what I was thinking. Brad Stevens is still out there as well. I don't know if he's interviewing for jobs. I know he's more of a front office guy now than he has been as far as like an assistant coach and stuff. But
yeah.
he's still out there, and I think he might be one of those that Toronto maybe looks at as well. I could see Brad Stevens. Right now, he is currently the president of basketball operations for Boston. I figured he was still in that position. And if Boston, gets to the finals and stuff, I don't think he's going to be going anywhere. But if someone offers him a huge bag of money, he might think about it. But I just think that he's such a Boston guy, and he's just been ingrained in that organization for like almost over a decade. So it's like, I don't see him going anywhere, but I thought that might be an interesting thought to throw out there. As far as Milwaukee is concerned, I don't know what direction. They seem pretty heavily on Nick Nurse coming out there to help them out in Milwaukee. And as far as someone that has a championship, and even though it's not probably as valuable as some other championships that are on some of these coaches' resumes, considering the injury-laden journey they took to get to where they were, I just don't know enough about Nick Nurse. I mean, is he really that good of a coach? I don't know. I mean, it seemed like Kawhi Leonard just kind of willed that team to that championship, and because of all the injuries to GSW and other teams that they had to play, I think that they kind of were just in the perfect spot, kind of.
Yeah.
So
I do want to talk about Detroit real quick, because that's like, obviously it's not the most, outside of the youth they have on the team, it's not really the most attractive.
Mm-hmm.
And there are two people that I've heard that are connected to the job who are both very, very interesting to me. The first one is former UConn coach Kevin Ollie.
Okay.
He's actually interviewing with them for a second time. Now, I'll put it this way. Kevin Ollie got screwed over by UConn at
Thunder great Kevin Ollie, by the way. Thunder great Kevin Ollie.
And I also want to bring up the fact that he won a national championship when Shabazz Napier was the best player on his team. So you can tell just off that, he's a good coach.
Yeah.
And I think he'd be a good coach for this young Pistons team if they gave him the job. But here's another big name that some of y'all might not have heard of ever, but all like the people around me and Stoner's age have probably heard of before. Jerry Stackhouse.
Oh, okay.
I mean, he was a star for a little bit, but his best years were with the Pistons. And he's currently Vanderbilt's head coach. But, I mean, that's somebody to think about at least. I mean,
you could take him away from Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt doesn't really have that great of a basketball program. If you give him NBA money, he's probably going to bounce. No problem. Yeah. Maverick's great, Jerry Stackhouse. But I mean, no, that would be interesting. I mean, what about Isaiah Thomas? Is he interested in coaching at all, or is he more of a I'm staying on Twitter and ESPN type of guy? Is that where we're at with Isaiah Thomas, or do you think that Detroit could bring him back in the fold?
That'd be an interest. I mean, that's actually an actual Pistons great right there. But it's like, it's been over a decade since he's coached. Because I mean, obviously he coached the Pacers for a few years, then he was a coach for the Knicks for a few years, and then ended up coaching at FIU. Didn't really do a whole lot in any of those three.
Yeah.
I mean, he made the playoffs all 3 years with the Pacers, but they kind of just stagnated at a certain point. And then obviously those Knicks teams were so bad.
Yeah.
He only lasted 2 seasons there. And then at FIU, he went 26 and 65. So I think he's past the coaching stage of his life at this point.
Yeah, he might be spent. What about Avery Johnson? Avery Johnson getting any calls, you think?
I think it's kind of the same situation as Mike D'Antoni. Not necessarily like age-wise. I mean, he's 58, so he could definitely coach.
But it's more about his style.
It's more, I feel like, his style of coaching based off of like how he did with the Mavericks and then how he ended up doing in Brooklyn. Well, I guess technically New Jersey, but for the Nets in general, let's just say the Nets.
Yeah.
Like, I think his style of coaching is just like really past like its prime, more or less.
Okay.
So
That's fair. I mean,
also he hasn't coached for like a few years, and I mean, Bama was okay when he was there. Like, it wasn't like I said like at FIU, but.
you think Doc Rivers goes anywhere, or do you think that he takes some time off?
I think he's going to take some time off. Personally, I think people are going to look at what he did with Philly and like his failures of even getting them to a conference finals and just be like, yeah. Because I mean, yeah, he won like what, like one championship? He had like one championship with Boston or two.
One with 2008. 2008's been it. If Ty Lue leaves for Philly, do you think that he goes back to LA possibly? Or do you think they're done? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I feel like Doc Rivers is kind of getting an unfair shake at the fact that, like, oh, you've lost 10 game sevens. I'm like, but the dude's been to 10 game sevens. Like, how many coaches have been to 10 game sevens? Like, I mean, like, and I brought this up with Hot Rod the other day. I said he's lost games in those series where his star players have been completely disappearo. And I think that you can't shoot the ball for these players. You can't go out there and play for these players. And I think that that's happened to him more times than people actually understand. And I think that, you look back at those years like, oh, PG was hurt, or, Chris Paul wasn't playing. And you look at the years in Philly, and it's like, well, Embiid wasn't completely healthy, or Harden doesn't show up, which, that's been his thing the whole entire career. But I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's not really always him, and I think that he gets a lot of unwarranted heat. So I think that people might be willing to bring him in, and also I think he's expecting to be lowballed on kind of what kind of pay they're going to probably give him due to that, even though, like I said, it's not really his fault. And I think that a lot of coaches would take his resume and be okay with it, because of the fact that you do have a ring. You probably should have more than one, but it's like, when you look at the way those series panned out, you look at the way historically he's been bounced out of the playoffs, it's like, damn, your players just didn't show up at all. And Philly fucking gave up in Game 7 against Boston, not running up and down the floor, like not even trying. Like, I mean, and that's and that's rough to watch, because it's like, oh, is that the coach losing the locker room? I think no. I was like, I think that's just professional athletes hanging it up and saying there's nothing we can do because it just ain't falling, and ain't nobody walking off of this bench that's going to help us at this point. And I think that it was just kind of, they just threw the towel in, and Tatum had a fantastic game. And I just think it was just too much for them. But it's like, you can't put that on Doc Rivers to like not have your team continue to fight when they're down 25 plus. It's like, you're not going to find that even in a playoff scenario with some of these guys, because they know the reality of the situation is these are professional athletes, and giving up a 20-plus point lead rarely ever happens, if any. So it's like, especially when it's late. So I don't really blame them for quote-unquote giving up on him, but I don't know if he even should have really been canned. Yeah.
And apparently Joel Embiid wasn't very happy about them firing him either, so...
Yeah,
now you don't upset your star player, so...
Yeah.
I mean, they pretty much are going to have to get Budenholzer in order to, like, hold it down.
I feel like
that'd be a great coach for him. I would say apparently Doc Rivers did interview or is going to interview for the Suns job, and it's like
I think that'd be a good fit. Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna fire a 2-time NBA Coach of the Year winner in Monty Williams, you better bring in someone like Doc Rivers, because you just gave away a 2-time Coach of the Year winner for peanuts. If you don't, I mean, at least that's what I mean. If they end up not bringing in someone of that caliber, I think that Phoenix fans will be very disappointed, because I think you've given away somebody again that shouldn't have been fired. I think Monty Williams should have been fired. Are you fucking kidding me? I mean, it's not your fault that Luka Doncic went off for buku crazy in a closeout game the year before this, and then you have another 30-point game from your team where DeAndre Ayton doesn't play, and you still have a poor shooting performance from Booker and Durant, where it's like just the law of averages is like, how did that even happen? I mean, that just, Kevin Durant's 1 for 11 to start a game, like that never happens. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just,
Right.
especially with him not even pulling up from 3, it was all mid-range shots that were back rimming. I was like, I've seen it when he was in OKC a couple times, but you don't really see that often from him. And I feel like, again, I think some of these African American and coaches of color get really aggressively fired for reasons that I don't think white coaches would get fired for. I mean, like, it's just, why is Budenholzer gone? Well, because you lost to a 10 seed technically. I mean, you
Right.
lost, you didn't just lose, you got absolutely boss handled by Jimmy Butler and the Heat. And I think that because of that, that was warranted. I don't think I have a problem with Budenholzer getting canned because of the underperforming factor of, you had the best record in the NBA and get bounced. Not to bring in hockey randomly, but the Bruins, same thing with them. Best record in hockey, gets bounced in the first round by the Panthers, but now look where the Panthers are. So you can't. The same situation the Heat are in. The Florida team's heating up here for just weird random reasons. And not because they're high seeds either. It's just been kind of a weird year for these teams with great records just getting bounced when they're not supposed to be. And
all that means is that we're getting a 7 seed in the Super Bowl this year.
yeah. Let's go Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield for Super Bowl MVP. Gee, many Christmas. You might as well put all your chips on the table right there. It's just been such a weird year. I just feel like. But what are your thoughts on that aspect of, like, maybe because their POCs are kind of getting unfairly canned, because we've seen it before?
As a black person, I don't want to like sit here and play the victim in that regard, but it's like just based off what I've seen with, like, going to a different sport, the Texans, like, they've had
Lovie Smith, yeah.
They had Lovie Smith this year, and then they had I keep forgetting like their coach the previous year's name. I'm gonna look it up real quick.
Yeah.
But these are two coaches of color that is like, we all knew Houston wasn't going to contend like those past years. Like, we all knew the Texans were going to be like a bottom.
You would have kept Bill O'Brien.
They kept Bill O'Brien for so many years.
Dimple chin, fucking dimple chin.
But it's like all these other coaches like just get all like, you gave Dom Capers so many years when he was first the head coach. And it's like you gave, Gary Kubiak was actually a good coach for the Texans, not for nothing. It took him a while to get started. Wade Phillips only was like the interim coach. Yeah. But Bob had all these years to do something, and then y'all fired him finally after 1 year. Then Romeo Crennel did a really good job.
Yes.
And you didn't give him the job. Didn't give him the head coaching job after that. So David Culley, that's his name.
Okay.
David Culley, So, and people are saying they're going to do the same. Like, I'm going on a tangent real quick, but it's like, I don't think they do the same thing to D'Amico Ryans only because D'Amico Ryans is a Texans legend, and that's going to alienate the fan base even more. Yeah. But no, like, I definitely see that it's like, historically, you look at black coaches in like every sport, they have a much shorter leash than like, white coaches. And that's not me trying to race bait or nothing.
No.
Not trying to race bait either.
That's just facts. Yeah. It's spade. Yeah.
There clearly is like some kind of racial bias. Like, I totally get the argument. Oh, like, not everything is racial, but it's like it very clearly is with like sports teams, and it's like I don't know what can be done to change it. Like, I really don't like the Rooney Rule because it seems like they're only getting interviews because they are black and they're not getting any actual chance to do it. So I hate the Rooney Rule for that reason. And people like are just saying like, oh, like, well, you guys complain about this, but then like, we have a rule in place to interview a black coach. Well, like they're
but you're not giving Eric Bieniemy the job. You're not hiring them. You're just giving them interviews and then hiring a white guy.
Just to fulfill the Rooney Rule. And it's like, why not just I'm with like a lot of people. Why not just interview them based off of their ability to do their job?
Exactly.
And like, their character and how they can be as leaders instead of just saying, oh, I'm only going to interview you just so I can fulfill the Rooney Rule. Like, because the Rooney Rule is not helping as much. Like, it's not doing what people thought it was going to do.
Exactly. Yeah. It's instead of forcing forcing diversity as the conservatives would put it. I think it's more of you're just kind of trying to appease people that can obviously see through the facade of you actually giving a shit. And
Exactly.
I think it's another thing where it's like, for instance, like you're really wanting to pick Nick Nurse over Monty Williams. I mean, like a 2-time Coach of the Year award winner, just because Nick Nurse won a championship with a like injury-laden playoff field, and you have
Right.
Kawhi Leonard hit a shot that like hit the rim 95 times before it went in. I mean, it's just, to me, I don't see how like Doc Rivers' resume or Monty Williams' resume is worse than Nick Nurse's resume, or worse than Mike Budenholzer's resume, or
Right.
worse than these guys' resumes that are getting thrown out there that I don't think should be above some of these coaches of color, because it's like their resumes are better. I would fire Mike Dagnall in a minute, or sorry, Mark Dagnall for the head coach for the Thunder, to bring in Monty Williams, because Monty Williams has been a part of the Thunder organization before, and I think that plays kind of a big role in it as well. But he has proven that he can coach a team. 60 plus wins 2 years in a row, and you're gonna can the dude just because DeAndre Ayton doesn't like him. I mean, like,
Right.
I just don't understand the logic of getting rid of good coaches when obviously I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And I just, it's just frustrating, because we know from a fan's perspective that it shouldn't matter. It should just
Yeah.
be based on, what they bring to the table, and how good. And the thing is unfortunately, and if you want to use that term, most of the league is black guys. And I think that
Right.
and the same with the NFL and most major sports. I think it's one of those things where it's like, you have guys that can relate to these guys. You have guys that know where these guys are coming from. There's even guys that have played in the league that have been given this opportunity to come in and coach. They have perspective that a lot of these white coaches don't have. I didn't see Nick Nurse dropping 35 plus anywhere in his
Right.
NBA career. Oh, where was it? Oh, he didn't have one? Shocker. What about Brad Stevens? At least Brad Stevens played at the collegiate level for Butler. At least you can
Yeah.
say that. I mean, for a lot of these coaches, they don't have any playing experience. It's just, I know X's and O's, and I know a guy inside the organization, or it's one of those who you know, not what you know kind of situations with most of these white coaches. And I think a lot of people try to avoid the conversation because it's uncomfortable, but it's just
Yeah.
facts. It's
But
just
I mean,
facts.
yeah. And it's like there are some, like, I don't believe in bringing race into everything, but this is
No.
definitely somewhere where I think there is a bias, because I mean, like, going into a different sport once again, it's like there was a time where black people weren't seen as smart enough to play the quarterback position.
Yes.
So Doug Williams wins the Super Bowl as a starting quarterback for Washington.
Hmm.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Steve McNair takes the Titans to the Super Bowl. That's a big deal. Donovan
Hmm.
McNabb,
Hmm.
Russell Wilson, so on and
Hmm.
so forth. It was a big deal because like black people were seen as not smart enough to play the quarterback position, and there was a time there were no black coaches for this
Yep.
very same reason. Like,
Hmm.
so again, I hope we get to a point one day where coaches are like, we just hire coaches that are great coaches because
And I think we'll get there.
white,
I think
Asian,
we'll get there.
Hispanic
I think
doesn't
we'll
matter.
get
Like,
there.
I think a great coach is a great coach regardless of what color, creed, race they are.
Yeah.
So
And I think that's the bottom line. So I think this offseason will be interesting to see kind of these musical chairs with a bunch of these coaching vacancies. It's been a while since we've had this many high profile guys waiting around for a phone call to see if they're going somewhere else. Usually it's one or two teams that let go, 4 or 5 right now. I mean, that's pretty uncanny. So we'll see kind of how that pans out. Before we get out of here, let's talk a little bit about Victor Wembanyama and the effect he brings to the San Antonio Spurs as most likely their first pick. I think it's pretty on lock that he's going to be in a Spurs uniform. And what it kind of means for Coach Popovich if he stays, longer, because he thought about hanging it up, after this season, and you get Victor, and all of a sudden it's like, well, I guess I'll stick around for a little bit. What kind of effect do you think that brings to the Western Conference, and what kind of immediate impact do you think he could have for a team like San Antonio?
So I haven't watched him play a whole lot, but I've heard great things. I mean, he's like an all-around really good player. Like, he's a distributor. He's a good interior player as well. So it's like, and I mean, and he's like 7'3", or something like that.
Crazy.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, he's like 237, so it's like he's tall and he also has like the bulk around him as well. So I think this like he's apparently one of the best prospects we've ever had in league history. So I think this is going to be the beginning of the Spurs coming back to relevance. Obviously, since Kawhi left, and obviously since like Manu, Duncan, and Parker all left as well. Like the Spurs haven't really been all that relevant to say the very least. Like obviously they ended up getting DeRozan for a little bit, but that didn't work out for him. But this will be the third time that they've had the number 1 overall pick. I mean, the first time they got the Admiral Dave Robinson, then they had Tim Duncan in '97. And now they're gonna get Victor. So it's like they just keep walking right into getting center, like really good center. So I think he's gonna have a big impact. And I don't think the Spurs will contend next year or nothing like that.
Do you think they'll make the playoffs, or do you think they'll just make the play-in game?
They might backdoor into the play-in game, in my opinion, but that's just because the bottom of the West is like really just absolute garbage. Like,
well, and you bring that up, and it's like, well, the Rockets are kind of on the upswing. If James Harden comes back, that could help them be more competitive. The Thunder with Chet Holmgren coming back, and them still having a top 15 pick in this year's draft helps them bolster, and they were in the play-in game, so we know what Shai Gilgeous-Alexander brings to the table and kind of what the Thunder have. So the bottom of this conference, like you said, was bad this year, but I think the potential is that, like you said, the Spurs might get swamped anyways, just because of the fact that these teams at the bottom, as bad as they played this last season, or they were trying to tank for Wemby, whatever the case may be, this next year ain't going to be the same.
I mean, I think a few teams are going to drop off, though. That's like kind of my point. Like, I honestly think, I think the Rockets, and honestly, if the Trailblazers can get Dame some help, like their Trailblazers are the biggest mixed bag in the West Conference. It's like, if they get another piece for Dame, like I think they'll get into the play-in game. But it's like, if Dame ends up leaving,
who is that though? Like, who is that guy though? Like, who do they need to go get?
At least I don't even know, to be honest with you. Like maybe another scorer. Like that's like the Spurs or not the Trailblazers are just so bad outside of Dame. Like it's hard to say like what would really help them.
Anything
outside of just like another superstar. Like it's like how many superstars are you really gonna be able to get? Like
I mean, there's always there's some of these sneaky guys in the top 10 that end up being better than we think they're going to be. But the thing about this year's draft that's kind of weird is that a lot of the big names that were supposed to come out last year decided to stay. Like Baycott stayed at North Carolina. I mean, a lot of people wanted to sit. Oh, me too. Especially with how that season went, the preseason number 1 to being. I mean, I was shook at my Tar Heels. But yeah, I think that this is definitely an addition that will help the Spurs, and maybe they'll start building around Wemby, and we'll see the Spurs continue to be a 50-plus win team for the next 10 years. I mean, that's probably where we're at if they can lock him in and find some pieces around him the next couple seasons. I think that you're seeing, as you said, another Tim Duncan, David Robinson type consistency for San Antonio. Let's get into picks then.
I want to make one more point about the
draft. Go ahead.
I just feel like the draft this year is really top heavy. Like it's basically Victor
and Scotty.
That's about it. Like there's literally like not a lot of like other people. Like it's just like Victor and then Scoot Henderson and then everybody else.
Yep.
Brandon Miller too, actually, matter of fact.
Yeah,
like,
Brandon.
Everybody else is just like kind of there.
Yeah, that's like, exactly the vibe I get too. Is they're just kind of existing in the realm of this draft, and I think next year's is going to be a lot better. I think especially with Bronny coming out as well.
I just think this is kind of the NIL effect. Like players are going to stay in college longer because they're actually making money now. So I feel like that's exactly why I like going to the WNBA. That's why I can't believe I can't remember her name when she's from my damn state. That's crazy. What's her face? Bayou Barbie. name.
Is it not the Kavanaugh twins?
Not the Cavs twins.
Are you Barbie? Jesus, I don't even not Caitlin Clark, not Jesus. I no idea.
I'm sleep. Angel Reese, what the fuck?
Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay,
Why did I
LSU.
know?
Okay.
Playing at Maryland, bro. Like I couldn't remember. I'm like, nah. I mean, Angel Reese probably would have been the top pick if she would have went out through the draft this year. So
Yeah.
I mean, she's making like big money, like off her NIL stuff. So obviously, like she probably making some more money now than she's going to in the WNBA. So
All right.
there's just the NIL effect. Like people are going to stay in college longer now.
It's true. It's true. I hit the over. What's 110 plus 97? Is that
207.
217 or 207? Right now.
So 110 plus 97 would be
207. Yeah, you're right.
207. Yeah.
I'm just making sure
That was just quick maths in my head. I was like, wait.
Yeah. All right. Well, all right. Let's get some picks going for you. So let's go ahead and just preview this game here. Got my DraftKings pulled up here for game number 6 here for Boston Celtics on the road. Celtics a 3-point favorite on the road. What do you think here? You have, according to this napkin that I wrote down last time, are 2 and 3. And you have...
That's enough I thought it would be because I'm terrible at picking baseball. And I know baseball is like mainly like what we were picking last time.
Well, no, actually, we mainly picked XFL and NBA. We only had one. We only had one MLB game, so we were kind of XFL heavy, and you went 1-1 with the NBA is what kind of bummed us a little bit. But again, you got $100 to play with coming in, so we'll go with just the spread, and then we'll go with the over/under as well as far as this game goes, since it's the only NBA action we got. We'll put 2 of those picks, and then we'll dance over to the MLB and just kind of shoot the shit with that. So, what do you think here, Boston or Miami +3 here in Game 6?
I'm gonna go Celtics with the spread.
Celtics
Honestly,
-3.
I just have a feeling Miami's not going to show up again, and we're going to go to a game 7, and the Celtics will have a chance to be the first ever team to bounce back from a 3-0 deficit. So I'm going to go Celtics.
I like it. The over/under for this is 211 is the over/under here. Again, 207 was the combined last time. Obviously, the Heat didn't even get to 100 points, which probably won't happen at home. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm actually going to go over. I think the Heat will definitely make it a closer game, but I'll be a high-scoring game, as most of these games have been, but I'm going to go over.
All right, over the 211. And I'm going to go over as well. I know that's we're matching here, but I think I think 211's a little low.
Yeah.
And I don't have a problem with that at all.
My bad.
Good. City. All right, Rockies. All right, I'm just doing the worst right now. So I got 150 to play with. I'm gonna put 100 on, or I'm gonna put 75 on the Celtics to cover that 3-point spread. Using with 75, I'll put 25 on the over, and I'll put 25 on these last 2 MLB MLB games here. You got 100. You want to put 25 all the way down, or you want to put Celtics and Heat heavy, and then just put the rest on MLB?
I'll just put the rest on MLB.
Okay. So how much you wanna put on the Celtics minus the 3?
So it's 150, right?
No, you got 100. I got 150. I got 150 reaching back from. Okay.
I'm gonna go 50.
50. All right. And then the over, you want to do on that one?
25.
25, and then just put hell easy with 25 left. So you want to put like 15 on one and 10 on the other or something.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, we'll just 15 on one, 10 on the other. All right, MLB wise, again, all the spreads are a run and a half, so it's not not really. It's just kind of what games kind of interest you the most here. Any teams that you want to check in on and see who they're playing?
Mariners.
Mariners playing the Pirates. Mariners minus a run and a half.
I gotta see who's pitching.
It's George Kirby and Mitch Keller going at it for.
Kirby's been doing a pretty good job. I'm gonna go M's.
Mariners minus 1.5. Versus Pirates 5, 6, 3. All right, and second one. Who you want to look at here?
Let's go Orioles. Actually, matter of fact,
Orioles are playing. Anybody?
They're the Rangers.
Playing the Rangers. Yeah, they're a 1.5 favorite against the Rangers.
I'm gonna go O's.
Orioles. It's 1.5. It's the Rangers. For my 2, I am going with the Atlanta Braves over the Phillies by 1.5.
The Phillies.
And then for my last one, I'm gonna go with. Let's go with the Dodgers minus a run and a half against the Rays.
Sounds safe.
So yeah, well, my Dodgers haven't been doing too great. The only reason I say my Dodgers is because the farm team is here, so that's why I pick them.
Actually, I thought I got the Rays confused with the Marlins. Yeah, that's a scary one. So
Yeah.
I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah, I'm not feeling too confident about the reason why they're favored. It's Syndergaard versus Beeks though, so I think it's because Syndergaard is pitching is why they have the Dodgers favored there in that game.
Yeah.
Which 3 do you want to make your locks?
3 locks. Let's go Nets over the Royals. And
No, I mean out of the picks you've already made. Yeah. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So which 3 are you the most confident about right now?
I am the most confident in. I don't know, those are all 3 tough matchups too. I'm gonna say O's over Rangers against my better judgment because
Orioles
starting, so that's scary.
Okay, so the Orioles are the first one, and then what are the other 2 you want to put on here? You gonna take any of the Celtics lines as?
I'm gonna take the over.
The over 211. Okay, over 211, and then the last one you're gonna do your Mariners.
Y'all do M's.
All right. Well, Kaz, thanks for joining me this afternoon. Appreciate you coming by again to give us some love over here at the St0ner Sports Radio broadcast booth. Any final words before we bounce on out of here?
I have something to say to Mr. Rain Carthon, the general manager of the Tennessee Titans. For those of you guys who haven't heard, DeAndre Hopkins has been released by the Arizona Cardinals. The Titans receiving core is garbage. So, Rain, it's your time to shine, brother. Go get DeAndre. Bring him back to the division. and let him get his revenge on the Texans. Let's get it.
I like it. I like it a lot, and I would like to see that happen for the Titans for sure. As far as I'm concerned, my final thoughts are Celtics in 7, and we will see you next week for another episode. And keep your sticks on the ice, folks. We'll see you later.